welcome to the edge of my mind. Let's step off. This video is about my two pieces on Alone. That's the title of this piece, and it's on the emotion of loneliness. I did the first piece, which is this acrylic on canvas, in 2014. When I did it, I was experimenting with if I could get something to appear to be floating, and then also a visualization of air, because you can't directly paint air, but you can paint things that suggest the movement of air, and I really wanted to get this movement of wind. I specifically chose to do the figure with this extreme surrealistic form of isolation represented by this floating island. And then I did the figure with no clothes to accentuate being exposed to the elements. And I guess being vulnerable and being without help, I think, was a lot of the drive behind the emotion on this. And this came from a real place for me. This was similar in the time frame when the Travelers were developing, but not before I had the final Travelers piece finished. This was prior to that, and I was grappling with this deep sense of loneliness I felt. I'd moved quite a few times across the country, and I was facing another move and waiting for that move, and just a whole lot of things like that. But this piece is one of many that are good examples of a positive expression of negative emotion. And I find when it comes to something like loneliness or rage or these other things that on one hand seem obscene, and especially seem obscene to put before a crowd, often when they're put before a crowd, though it is something negative that was originally expressed, the experience between the viewer and the piece, and the experience between the painter and the viewer, is not that one that is negative. In fact, like with this piece being loneliness, one of the things you do when you express how lonely you are to someone else is show them that they are not alone in that feeling. And there's huge value in that. And I would say this is a really good example of the positive expression of a negative emotion. And that's something that I really seek to do. And it's hard to get one that is so succinct. I would say even the Crossroads piece is more convoluted and relies on culture and a lot of things to stand, but the Alone piece is not like that. So that's what I was going after. That's also why it existed in a world of grays, and there's some muted colors, but it initially appears very grayscale. And then there is a sun in the piece, but it's behind all of this interference. I do kind of wish I would have done the foreground a little bit less. That's a compositional issue that I probably wouldn't make that mistake if I were to paint it now. So I did this piece in 2014, and then in 2017 in my sculpture class I redid the piece in bronze. And mostly it was because when you're in art school you are looking for subjects, and I would rather do an inspired subject again than do a subject that I didn't feel was inspired. So this is the Alone piece again, and it ended up with shorter hair in this version because when you cast bronze, the bronze is very viscous going into the investment, and so it's like pouring syrup through a straw, and so the narrower the straw, the less likely you'll get any in there. And so it came out with sort of a haircut, but otherwise it came out very well. I was very happy with this casting. This is all one solid piece. You can see this. I tried to reduce weight down in there as much as I could. So that's actually just to make the piece lighter. I still wanted the heaviness of form, but I just didn't want it to be so heavy I couldn't hang it. The figure even has toes. That's a great thing about this. I don't know how clear that's showing up. Hopefully that's not fuzzy beyond reason. But anyway, and then she is suspended by fish line, and it is very stable. I was worried about the fish line stretching, but this is probably 75-pound Tess. You can get some really strong Tess. This is a little bronze ball I made in the metalsmithing studio to go with this piece. And then these little pieces underneath of it are other little fishing components, which I'm a huge fan of the fishing stuff. But as much as I love this piece and I love the hanging version, I have had a kind of time of it whenever I've tried to display it in a gallery, which hasn't been that often, but it's been enough to be a pain. Because most galleries don't have things to hang from the ceiling, and at least at my level of art, they are not comfortable with you just poking holes in the ceiling. So ideally, I will get a fixture made out of rebar or something that can be freestanding on the ground and allow me to hang this at about 4.5 feet, because I think displaying it at about a little under nose level for most people would be amazing. Well, maybe 4.5 feet's too high. Maybe 4 feet. I don't know. I want it to be about here, which of course it won't be that way for every person, but I think coming almost face to face with the figure and the smallness is an asset to this piece. So that is this work on alone, and I think it's one of my better pieces. I wouldn't be against doing it again in other forms. I hate that they are ending up back in closets, but you do get to a point where you just have art out the ears, and then what are you gonna do? So I'm putting them on the internet. I hope you enjoyed this. See you next time.